Don't talk to my wife like that in her own home. My son's voice roared through the small kitchen like thunder. I froze, still holding the watering can over my potted plants. Tears welled up, but I held them back. In just a few months, the little boy I once carried in my arms now allowed a stranger to throw me out of the house I had built with my own hands. That was the moment I understood. If I wanted to regain respect in my own home, I'd have to make a decision that might cost me my son. My name is Rebecca. I'm 67 years old. I've worked as a seamstress for 40 years to raise my son after my husband passed away. Every dollar I saved went into building this house. Every brick, every nail came from my hard work. The day my son Daniel graduated as an engineer was the happiest day of my life. Every sacrifice finally had meaning. Then Christina appeared. Daniel met her at a company party, and just 6 months later, he announced they were getting married. Christina was 10 years younger, beautiful, charming, and worked as a marketing manager. Everything happened so fast. One afternoon, the two of them sat in my living room to talk about living with me for a while to save money for a house. "It'll be great, Mom," Daniel said excitedly. "We can save money, and you won't have to live alone." Christina smiled softly, but her eyes were cold. Something in that smile unsettled me, but I brushed it off. My son was happy, and for a mother, isn't that what matters most? The first sign came just a week after the wedding. I came home from visiting a friend and found my balcony plants moved. The cacti that needed bright sunlight were now pushed into a dark corner. "Christina, these plants need light to survive," I said gently. She didn't even lift her head from her magazine. "Oh, they made the balcony look crowded. I bought a new coffee table, needed space for it." When I saw the table, my heart sank. It was a cold, modern metal piece that clashed with everything in the house, and it sat exactly where my beloved plants had been for 15 years. "Don't you think you should have asked me first?" I asked. Christina finally looked up, her tone flat. Daniel said, "It's fine. After all, this is our home, isn't it?" I swallowed my tears and said nothing. That night, I tried talking to Daniel, but he only shrugged. "Mom, Christina just wants to make it feel like her own space. It's not a big deal." From then on, everything slowly changed. My curtains were replaced with metal blinds. Family photos were removed to make room for lifeless decorations. The kitchen I'd loved for decades was rearranged so that I could barely reach the pots and pans. Every time I spoke up, Daniel got irritated. "Mom, you need to be more flexible. Christina lives here too." What hurt the most wasn't the changes. It was realizing that my opinion no longer mattered. I had become a guest in my own home. One day, I came home from the market and found 3 strange women sitting in the living room drinking coffee. Christina introduced them as co-workers. They nodded politely, then kept chatting as if I wasn't even there. I quietly went to the kitchen, but their voices carried. "I don't know how you managed to live with your mother-in-law," one of them said. Christina sighed. "It's tough. She controls everything, complains all the time, but luckily it's temporary." "When are you two moving out? We're still looking." "Hopefully soon." I'm tired of explaining to her how I clean, when I eat, even what I eat. I froze, still holding a can of beans. I'd never demanded explanations for anything. Tears slid down my face, but I stayed silent. That evening, I tried to talk to Daniel. "Son, I heard Christina isn't happy living here." Daniel put his fork down and looked at her. She immediately played the victim. "I just said it's a bit hard sometimes. I'm used to more independence, but Christina," I said, "I've never complained or tried to control you." Daniel frowned. "Are you calling my wife a liar?" His voice was sharp, unfamiliar. Christina lowered her head, pretending to be hurt. "Mom just needs time to adjust." Daniel said, "She's trying her best. You should be more understanding." I was speechless. My son truly believed I was the problem. From that day on, Christina began shutting me out. She cooked only for the two of them and left leftovers for me. If I tried to talk about a show on TV, they'd change the channel. The house I once loved had become a stranger's place. One Sunday afternoon, I came home from church and saw all my garden pots shoved into a corner. "Christina, what happened to my plants?" I asked. She was sitting beside Daniel, flipping through a home decor magazine. "Oh, I needed space for the new grill I bought. Those old pots were in the way." I was stunned. Some of those were gifts from Daniel's father before he passed. Christina sighed, sounding bored. "This house needs an update, Rebecca. No one keeps such an old-fashioned garden anymore. The grill will raise the property value." Anger surged in me. "This is my house. You can't just remove things that belong to me." Daniel jumped up, face flushed. "Don't talk to my wife like that in her own home. It's her house, too. She has every right to change things." I froze. "Her house?" My voice trembled. "Daniel, this is my home. Letting you stay here doesn't mean—" "Oh, here we go again," Daniel interrupted. "Maybe we should move out if it bothers you so much." Christina quickly grabbed his hand, pretending to calm him. "It's okay, honey. Your mom's just having trouble adjusting because of her age." That condescending tone shattered something inside me. I ran to my room and cried like a child, not because of the plants, but because I realized I had truly lost my son to a woman who was erasing me piece by piece. That night, I made my decision. The next morning, once they left for work, I called a locksmith. "I want every lock replaced today." 2 hours later, a middle-aged man arrived. As I explained, he nodded. "You're doing the right thing, ma'am. These days, young people don't respect their elders anymore." When he finished, I held the new keys in my hand, feeling like I'd reclaimed something that had been taken from me for months. I paid him and gave a little extra. "Thank you." He smiled kindly. "Good luck, ma'am. You'll need it." Then I called my older son, Michael, who lived in Seattle. Unlike Daniel, he was calm and thoughtful. After listening, he sighed. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Daniel's always been easy to influence, but this is too much. You did the right thing. They need to face the consequences. If Christina can't respect you, she doesn't deserve to live under your roof." Michael's words gave me strength. I spent the day restoring my home, moving the plants back to their spots, removing the metal table from the balcony, hanging my old curtains again, and placing the family photos back on the shelf. It felt like reclaiming every inch of my life. That evening, I heard Daniel's car pull into the garage. My heart pounded, but I wasn't afraid anymore. This was my house, and I would act like its rightful owner. I heard keys turn in the lock, then stop. More attempts followed, then Daniel's voice. "Weird. The key's not working. Let me try." Christina rattled hers, too. Then came the knocking light at first, then harder. "Mom, are you in there?" "The door won't open." I sat calmly on the sofa with the lights on so they could see me through the curtain. "Mom, please open the door." Daniel's voice grew frantic. Then Christina shouted, "Rebecca, everything inside the house was finally in order." I walked to the Papatif door, but didn't open it. "Everything's perfectly fine," I said evenly. "I just changed the locks." There was a pause. Then Christina shrieked. "What did you just say? Rebecca, what kind of joke is this? Open the door right now." Daniel sounded more confused than angry. "This isn't a joke, son. I've decided only people who respect me can live in this house. Since you've both proven otherwise, you're no longer welcome here." "Mom, this is insane. It's raining out here. Please open the door." The rain had begun to fall lightly, cold against the porch. My heart ached, but I stayed firm. "Daniel, you have a good job and some savings. You two can stay at a hotel tonight. We'll talk tomorrow." "I can't believe this," Christina yelled, panicked. "You can't throw us out like this. It's illegal." "Actually, it's not," I replied calmly. "This house is in my name. I pay all the bills. You two don't contribute a single dollar. So, legally, you're just guests. I have every right to decide who stays here." I heard their arguing fade, then footsteps moving away. Minutes later, their car started and drove off. I sat down, trembling. I had really done it. Part of me wanted to run after them, apologize, beg them to come back, but the stronger part knew this was the only way to reclaim my dignity. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. The next morning, the house was quiet, serene. I made myself coffee, savoring the feeling of being in my kitchen without Christina's judgmental stare. Around 9:00 a.m., the phone rang. It was Daniel. His voice sounded tired, defeated. "Mom, we need to talk." "All right," I said. "Come at 2 p.m. alone." "But Christina, just you or there's no conversation." A long pause. "Okay, I'll come." At exactly 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. When I opened it, my heart ached. Daniel looked as if he'd aged 10 years overnight stubble. On his chin, dark circles, wrinkled shirt. "Come in," I said softly. He stepped inside slowly, as if entering a stranger's house instead of the one he grew up in. We sat across from each other in the living room, neither of us speaking. "Mom?" he finally said, rubbing his face. "Why did you do this?" The question caught me off guard. I expected anger, not confusion. "Do you really not understand?" He shook his head. "I know you and Christina had disagreements, but kicking us out." "Disagreements?" My voice broke. "Christina has disrespected me for months. She's changed everything in this house without asking, gossiped about me with her friends right here in this living room, and shut me out of my own meals. And yesterday, when I tried to protect the plants your father gave me, you yelled at me like I was a stranger." Daniel bowed his head, avoiding my eyes. "Christina said you were controlling, that you never let her do things her way, and you believed her without even asking me." He stayed silent, and that silence was my answer. "Daniel, I built this house with my own hands after your father died. I worked 3 jobs to pay for your education. All I ever wanted was your happiness, but that doesn't mean I have to be treated like garbage in my own home." Tears streamed down Daniel's face. For the first time since he was a child, I saw him cry. "I'm sorry, Mom. I was blind. I only wanted to keep Christina happy, and I didn't see what you were going through." My heart softened, but I stayed firm. "Sorry isn't enough, son. This has gone too far. You two need to find another place to live." "Mom, we don't have enough saved yet. We're still putting money aside for a down payment. That's not my problem. You're adults. Find somewhere cheaper. Ask Christina's family for help. Do whatever you need, but you can't live here anymore." Daniel hesitated. What if Christina apologizes? What if she promises to change? I looked straight into his eyes. "Do you really believe she'll change after months of disrespect?" He sighed. "I don't know. I love you both. I don't want to choose." "You already did, Daniel. When you yelled at me to defend her, you chose." He broke down, sobbing like a little boy. For a moment, I saw my son again, the one I raised. I almost gave in, but I knew if I did, the cycle would repeat. "I love you, Daniel. This will always be your home. You'll always be welcome here. But Christina has shown she doesn't respect me, and I can't allow that. When you have your own place, we can rebuild our family, but not under this roof." Daniel left quietly, promising to think about it. In the following days, he called several times, asking me to reconsider, searching for another solution. I stood firm. A week later, there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, Christina stood there. She looked completely different. No makeup, pale face, deep shadows under her eyes, simple clothes. "Rebecca," she said softly, "can we talk?" I hesitated, ready to close the door, but decided to hear her out. "Come in," I said coolly. Christina stepped inside, looking lost, stripped of her arrogance. We sat in the living room, the same place where she once ignored me while chatting with her friends. "I brought you this," she said, handing me a small plant. "I know you love gardening." I looked at the little cactus, said nothing, and set it on the table. "What do you want, Christina?" She took a deep breath, gathering courage. "I came to apologize for how I treated you, for being disrespectful, for everything." I crossed my arms and watched her. "After you kicked us out," she continued, "Daniel and I had to stay in a cheap hotel. It was awful. The room was full of roaches and noisy all night. Now we're renting a small room in an old lady's house in another neighborhood. She's even stricter than you. No using the kitchen after 8:00 p.m., shoes off at the door, and no guests allowed." "I need to know why you're telling me this," I said coldly. "You want me to feel sorry for you?" "No." She shook her head quickly. "I just wanted to apologize. I realize now that I was wrong, that I invaded your life without thinking about your feelings." "Why the sudden change of heart?" I asked. 2 weeks ago, you were calling me a cranky old lady." Christina's eyes filled with tears, because now I understand. "Daniel told me you worked 3 jobs after your husband died, sold your jewelry to pay for his tuition, and built this house piece by piece. You created everything here: a life, a family, a home. And I came in acting like none of it mattered." Her voice sounded sincere, but I stayed cautious. "How do I know you're not just putting on a show?" "I can't prove it with words, only actions. If you'll give me a chance." "A chance for what?" "A chance to show you I can respect you, that I can be a decent daughter-in-law, that I can belong to this family without trying to change it." I looked deep into her eyes. There was something different this time, a touch of humility. "Does Daniel know you're here?" "No," she replied. "He's at work. I thought it was best if we women talked honestly, just the two of us." That honesty surprised me. She used to hide behind my son whenever conflict arose. "Listen, Christina," I said slowly. "You hurt me deeply. Feeling erased in my own home isn't something that fades easily. An apology and a potted plant can't erase that." "I understand," she said softly, "and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right." "First of all," I said, "this is my house. I decide everything that happens in it. If you want to make changes, you ask, and you respect my final decision." Christina nodded quickly. "Son, I expect respect. No bad-mouthing me, no excluding me from meals, and no touching my belongings without permission." "Yes, Rebecca, I promise." "Lastly, this is your final chance. If I ever feel disrespected again, there won't be another conversation. You and Daniel will have to leave immediately." "I understand," she said seriously. "And before I make a final decision, I want to meet with both of you together. Daniel also needs to face what he's done." "I can call him right now," Christina said, pulling out her phone. "No," I interrupted. "We'll do this properly. Tell him to come here tomorrow evening at 7:00 p.m. Dress appropriately. This isn't a casual visit." Christina stood up, looking genuinely relieved. "Thank you for giving me this chance, Rebecca. I promise you won't regret it." When she left, I felt drained, but oddly hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, something good could grow out of this painful mess. That night, I called my older son, Michael, and told him about Christina's visit. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" he asked, sounding worried. "People don't change overnight." "I know, son, but everyone deserves a second chance. I haven't promised anything yet. I just want to see how Daniel behaves tomorrow." "All right," he said. "Just be careful. Don't let things slip back to how they were. Don't worry. I've set my boundaries clearly." The next evening, right at 7:00 p.m., the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Daniel and Christina stood there side by side, both tense. Daniel held a bouquet of white lilies, my favorite flower. "Come in," I said, smiling faintly as I took the flowers. We sat in the living room, lay on the sofa, I in my familiar armchair. The silence hung heavy before Daniel finally spoke. "Mom, I want to start by saying, I'm sorry. There's no excuse for how I treated you. You gave me everything. Always put me before yourself. And I yelled at you in your own home." His voice cracked. "I'm ashamed." "What hurt me the most," I said calmly, "wasn't your yelling. It was that you stood by while someone disrespected me for months and did nothing." "I know," Daniel admitted, eyes cast down. "I was so focused on keeping Christina happy that I ignored what you were going through. Maybe I saw it, but I didn't want to face it. Christina told me you two still haven't found a place to live," I said. "That's right." Daniel nodded. "Rent is too high. We're trying to save for a house instead of wasting it on rent." "I understand," I said. "So, what is it you're asking from me?" They exchanged a glance. Then Daniel spoke. "We're just asking for one more chance to prove that we've learned our lesson, that we can live with you respectfully," Christina added. "I told him everything you asked for, and he agrees with all of it." "Good," I said, looking directly at Daniel. "But I have one more condition. If there's ever a disagreement between me and Christina, you don't automatically take her side. You listen to both, and be fair." Daniel nodded firmly. "I promise, Mom. I won't make that mistake again." "All right." I exhaled. "You can come back tomorrow. I just need some time to prepare." Christina's eyes widened. "Really? You'll give us another chance?" "Yes, but remember, this is the last one. If I feel disrespected again, there will be no discussion. You'll leave immediately." Both of them agreed, thanking me over and over. As they were about to leave, I asked Daniel to wait on the balcony. I wanted a private word with Christina. When we were alone, I looked straight at her. "Christina, I've realized something these past few days. You've never really had a true home, a close family. That might explain your behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. If you really raid Midas, I want to change. I want you to know there's still room for you in my heart as a daughter, not to replace anyone, but to build something new together." Tears filled Christina's eyes. In that moment, I saw beyond her pride a lonely woman who never knew what family truly meant. "Thank you, Rebecca," she whispered. "I'll do my best to deserve that place." The next day, Daniel and Christina returned with their luggage. Adjusting wasn't easy. There were still small clashes, but they handled them with respect and communication. To my surprise, Christina really tried. She began asking me for advice on keeping the house tidy, invited me to watch TV shows with her, and listened when I talked about my life. A month later, I found her looking through my old photo album. I stiffened, remembering how she used to sneer at my things. "I'm sorry, Rebecca," she said, closing the album gently. "I shouldn't have looked without asking." "It's all right," I said, sitting beside her. I was just surprised. I wanted to know more about this family, about Robert, Daniel's father. He doesn't talk about him much. Her words softened my heart. I opened the album and pointed to a photo of Robert holding baby Daniel. He was a good man, hardworking, honest. He died at 42, a construction accident. "That must have been so hard raising 2 kids alone," Christina said softly. "It was the hardest time of my life," I admitted. "But it showed me how strong I truly was." She fell silent for a moment, then whispered, "Maybe that's why I acted the way I did. I felt threatened by your strength, by the history of this house. I felt like I didn't belong." "Christina," I said gently, "a home isn't built by erasing the past. It's built by adding new memories to it. You and Daniel can create a future here without destroying its foundation." She nodded, truly understanding for the first time. In time, I realized not only she had changed, I had too. I became more open, allowing them to redecorate their bedroom, add a few modern shelves to the living room as long as the family photos stayed. I even agreed to a backyard grill as long as no one touched my cherished plants. Daniel also returned to being the loving son I remembered. On Sunday mornings, we had breakfast at the farmer's market like we used to. Sometimes Christina joined us. Sometimes she let us have our time alone. 6 months after the lock incident, they invited me to dinner. I knew it was something important. When Christina brought out dessert, the flaw she'd learned from my recipe, Daniel took her hand and smiled. "Mom, we found an apartment. We signed the lease yesterday." My throat tightened. Part sadness, part pride. "That's wonderful, son. It's close by," Christina said quickly. "Only 10 minutes away by car. You can come for dinner anytime." "When are you moving?" I asked. "In 2 weeks," Daniel replied. "But there's one more thing, Mom." They exchanged a look before Christina said softly, "I'm pregnant. We're having a baby." Tears filled my eyes. My first grandchild was on the way. All the pain of the past months suddenly felt small compared to this joy. "We want you to be part of the baby's life from the very beginning," Daniel added. "If it's a girl, we want to name her after you." I hugged them both tightly, overwhelmed with love. After all the storms, we had finally found balance again. That night, lying in bed, I thought about everything from hurt to understanding, from conflict to peace, from boundaries to true connection. I realized that sometimes you have to draw a line so that healthy relationships can grow. The house I once built with sacrifice was still my refuge. But now it was also a cradle for new memories, a bigger family and a future I couldn't have imagined 6 months earlier. And it all began the moment I had the courage to say no. The moment I refused to be erased in my own home, the boundary Daniel once crossed turned out to be what helped us all see where limits belong to build something lasting. On the morning they moved to their new place, I helped carry the last boxes to the car, hiding my tears. "Mom," Daniel said, hugging me tightly, "this isn't goodbye. We're only 10 minutes away." "I know." I smiled. "It's just I'll miss hearing your footsteps around the house." Christina, 4 months pregnant, walked over with a gentle smile. "Rebecca, remember Sunday lunches at our place and Wednesday dinners here?" I nodded, wiping away a stubborn tear. "And call me if you need anything." "We promise," they said in unison. I stood on the driveway watching their car disappear around the corner. When I went back inside, the house felt strangely quiet. I spent the day rearranging things, putting books back on the shelves, moving the plants into the sunlight, returning everything to its place. Those small acts brought peace to my heart. That evening, I was sipping tea and watching my favorite show when I got a message from Christina. It was a photo of their new apartment with a caption, "Missing your warmth. Can you help us decorate this weekend?" I smiled. Who would have thought that the woman who once mocked my decor would now ask for my help? People truly can change when they're met with steady love and clear boundaries. In the following months, life found a new rhythm. Sunday lunches at Daniel and Christina's apartment became precious moments. I arrived early to help Christina prepare meals, and we talked about the baby, recipes, and the future. Daniel, ever thoughtful, always drove me home afterward. Even though I kept insisting I could take the bus, Daniel never let me. As Christina's belly grew, our relationship deepened in ways I never expected. She began asking me about pregnancy, about raising Daniel, about the fears and hopes of becoming a first-time mother. I was terrified. I admitted one Sunday afternoon, Robert worked long hours, and I was alone with a baby who wouldn't stop crying. "I feel the same," Christina said, gently stroking her 7-month belly, eyes filled with worry. "Everyone thinks I'll just know how to be a mom, but I have no idea." "No one's born knowing, sweetheart," I said. "Motherhood is a journey of learning every single day." It was the first time I called her sweetheart, and it came out naturally. Christina noticed her eyes glistening. "Thank you, Rebecca," she whispered, "for giving me a second chance, for being here with me." I held her hand. "That's what family does, Christina. We lift each other up even after our mistakes." By the 9th month, she said something I never thought I'd hear. "Rebecca, I want you in the delivery room with me and Daniel." I froze. "Are you sure? That's a very private moment. I'm sure you're the only mother who truly cares for me. I want you there to welcome your granddaughter." We already knew it was a girl, and just as they'd promised, they would name her Baby Lucia. 2 weeks later, in the middle of the night, the phone rang. Daniel's anxious voice came through. "Mom, Christina's water just broke. We're heading to the hospital." "I'm on my way," I said, throwing on my coat. I arrived almost at the same time they did. Christina was in a wheelchair, her face contorted in pain. Daniel stood beside her, panicked just like Robert had been years ago. "Breathe. Stay calm," I told her, holding her hand. "Remember the breathing exercises we practiced?" Christina nodded, trying to keep her rhythm as the nurse pushed her into the delivery room. The next 8 hours were intense and emotional. Christina was stronger than I ever imagined, facing every contraction with remarkable courage. Daniel, though nervous at first, quickly found his place steady, patient, loving, and me, I thought I'd just stand by and watch, but I ended up holding her hand, wiping her sweat, encouraging her over and over. "You can do this, sweetheart," I blurted out. Christina squeezed my hand and looked straight into my eyes. "You just called me your daughter." "Yes," I said softly, "because that's how I see you now." With one final push, the sound of baby Lucia's first cry filled the room. When the nurse placed her in her mother's arms, all three of us cried out of joy, exhaustion, and love. "Hello, baby Lucia," Christina whispered, then turned to me. "Would you like to hold her?" My hands trembled as I took the baby, gazing at her tiny, wrinkled face, red and soft, just like Daniel's when he was born, and my heart overflowed with love. "Welcome to the family, little Lucia," I whispered, kissing her forehead gently, looking at Daniel, Christina, and my newborn granddaughter. I realized that every hardship we had faced was only a necessary part of the journey that led us here to this moment of love and connection. The months that followed were a blur of diapers, bottles, sleepless nights, and indescribable joy. I was always ready to help, but I also gave them space to learn how to be new parents. Christina amazed me. She became a tender, devoted mother. Daniel was like his father, caring, protective, and steady. About 6 months later, one afternoon, Christina appeared at my door, holding baby Lucia, her face pale and tired. "I'm sorry for showing up without warning," she said, her voice trembling. "Lucia's had stomach pain since yesterday, and I can't calm her down. Daniel's in a meeting, and I didn't know what else to do." "Come in, sweetheart," I said right away, opening the door wide. "You did the right thing." I took the baby and gently rocked her in my arms. Christina collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. "I don't know how you did it," she sighed. "Raising 2 kids, working, keeping the house together. I can barely handle one." I smiled, still rocking Lucia, who was beginning to settle. "You'll get used to it. And remember, no one has to do it alone. That's what family is for." Christina looked at me with teary eyes. "You always call me your daughter now." "Because that's what you truly are to me," I said softly. "It wasn't easy to get here, but we made it." Christina wiped her tears. "I never thought after that horrible fight we'd end up like this. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to see what really matters." Baby Lucia was sleeping peacefully in my arms. I sat beside Christina. "You know what I've learned from all this?" I asked. "That respect can't be forced with shouting or manipulation. It's built with clear boundaries and steady love. And I learned that a home isn't a for place. It's the people in it," Christina said quietly. "Thank you for teaching me that and for showing me what a real family looks like." Looking at my sleeping granddaughter and the woman I once saw as an adversary, now an irreplaceable part of my life, I felt nothing but gratitude. The boundary Daniel once crossed, that painful turning point, had become the beginning of our healing and growth. Sometimes it's in the deepest crises that we discover our real strength, and through the hardest relationships that we learn unconditional love. When baby Lucia turned 1, we held her birthday party in the backyard. The weather was mild, and the garden that had almost been destroyed was now greener than ever, decorated with balloons and bright ribbons. The grill still stood there, tucked neatly in a corner, leaving plenty of space for my beloved plants, a perfect symbol of the balance we had found. Family, friends, and neighbors all came. Michael flew in with his wife and their 2 children. My old neighbor brought over a homemade cake. Some of Christina's old friends attended too, though I noticed she wasn't as close with them anymore. I quietly watched her chatting with guests. No arrogance, no superiority. She served everyone with genuine warmth, proudly introduced her daughter, and made sure everyone felt welcome. When one friend joked, "Living with your mother-in-law must be tough," Christina smiled and replied confidently, "Rebecca is the best thing that ever happened to me. She taught me what family really means." I pretended not to hear, but those words warmed my heart. Daniel came over to help me arrange more food trays. "Everything all right, Mom? Need any help?" "Everything's perfect, son," I said, glancing around the garden filled with laughter. "I just want to enjoy this moment." Daniel lowered his voice. "I never thanked you properly." "For what?" I asked. "For being strong enough to set boundaries that day when you changed the locks. If you hadn't done that, Christina and I would never have realized how wrong we were. You saved this family by standing firm when it mattered." I touched his cheek like when he was a little boy. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to say no. Just then, baby Lucia wobbled toward me, reaching out her hands. I picked her up and she grabbed my necklace, her eyes sparkling. "Grandma." She babbled one of her very first words. Daniel and I looked at each other, overcome with emotion. Nothing could have been more perfect. The party lasted until evening. When the guests left, Daniel, Christina, and Lucia stayed behind to help clean up. "Mom, you can leave this for tomorrow," Daniel said, seeing I looked tired. "No, I want the house tidy before bed." Christina laughed, familiar with that side of me. "Then let us handle the heavy stuff. You've done enough today." While Daniel took out the trash and Christina washed the dishes, I sat on the porch with Lucia asleep in my lap. The gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Everything felt peaceful. I looked down at her tiny face and thought about how life had come full circle. Just a little over a year ago, I had felt invisible, like I was being pushed out of my own home. And now I was surrounded by love, respect, and belonging. Not because I gave in, but because I'd learned to stand up for my worth. When everything was finally cleaned up, Daniel came over, holding Christina's hand. "Mom, there's something we want to tell you," he said with a mysterious smile. "What is it?" I asked, half worried. Christina nudged him to speak. "Mom, do you remember that lot 2 blocks away on Acacia Street?" I nodded. "We bought it," Daniel said, beaming. "We're going to build a house there." "What? What about your apartment?" "We're selling it," Daniel replied. "We want Lucia to grow up close to nature with space to run, play, and plant trees," Christina added. "Just like the home where you raised Daniel." My throat tightened. "You're building a house only 2 blocks away." "Yes," Daniel said. "We want Lucia to grow up near you, so you'll be part of every moment of her life. And one more thing," Christina said gently. "We want you to help design the garden." "We want the new house to have a touch of you," Christina said, and tears filled my eyes. So many emotions flooded me: surprise, joy, gratitude, love. The same woman who once called my garden old-fashioned now wanted to recreate it in her new home. "I'd be honored," I managed to say, my voice trembling. Over the next few weeks, the 3 of us threw ourselves into the design plans. Daniel, with his engineering background, handled the technical details. Christina managed the interior layout and practical arrangements, and they let me weigh in on everything from the room layout to the wall colors. The garden, however, was my special territory. I spent hours planning it, sketching flower beds, and choosing plants that carried meaning for our family. Cutings from my old garden would be transplanted into the new one, creating a living link between generations. One afternoon, while checking on the construction site, Daniel called me over. "Mom, come see this." "What is it?" I asked. "Your room?" he said with a smile. "My room." I was surprised. "Yes. We're building a special suite for you so you can stay over on weekends or later if you ever need or want to live with us." I looked at the blueprints. It was a spacious room with a private entrance, a view of the garden, and even a small study area. "Son, that's not necessary. I have my own house." Christina spoke softly. "We know you love your home, Rebecca. We're not asking you to leave it. We just want you to know there will always be a place for you here. Anytime you offer 'em, I want to come." I understood what they weren't saying. They were thinking about my future, my old age, the lonely days that might come. But they weren't doing it out of duty. They were doing it out of genuine love. All I could say was, "Thank you." Daniel hugged me tightly and Christina joined in. Little Lucia, playing nearby, ran over and wrapped her tiny arms around our legs, wanting to be part of the moment, even if she didn't understand it. The house took nearly a year to finish. During that time, our bond grew even stronger. Daniel and Christina often had dinner with me, and I babysat Lucia when they had to meet with the builders. Sunday lunches continued to alternate between our homes. Christina became interested in sewing something I'd loved my whole life. "Would you teach me?" she asked shilly. "I've always admired it, just never had the patience to learn." "Of course," I said, smiling. "We can start with something simple like a little dress for Lucia." Our sewing sessions on the porch soon became a weekly ritual. Christina was diligent and surprisingly patient. Sometimes I'd look at her and think back to the proud, dismissive woman who had first entered my house 2 years ago, and I couldn't believe she was the same person. "What are you thinking about?" Christina asked one afternoon, noticing my quietness. "I'm thinking about how people can change when they're in the right environment," I said. She smiled. "Like plants, right? They just need the right soil, enough sunlight, and someone who knows how to care for them." I nodded. "Exactly. You know, Rebecca," she said softly. "I never had that before. A place where I could just be myself without trying to prove anything." "And who do you think you are now?" I asked, genuinely curious. She paused her stitching, thinking deeply. "A woman who's less afraid, less defensive. Someone who doesn't need to step on others to feel important. Someone learning to be a good mother, a good wife, and a good daughter." I reached over and squeezed her hand gently. No more words were needed. The move-in day came with a radiant spring. The flowers we had planted bloomed brightly as if celebrating this new beginning. I had helped them clean, arrange the closets, and prepare every small detail. While we unpacked dishes in the spacious kitchen, Christina said, "Rebecca, I'd like your help with something special." "Of course, sweetheart." She led me to a blank wall in the living room where several wooden boxes were stacked. "I want to make a memory wall with photos of both our family's special moments from when Daniel was a baby to when Lucia was born, kind of like a visual family tree." "Will you help me choose the pictures?" I was deeply moved. It was hard to believe this was the same woman who once hid my photos away for being too outdated. "I'd be honored," I said. We spent the favor whole afternoon looking through old albums. I showed her pictures from my wedding with Robert, baby photos of Daniel, little Michael learning to walk, snapshots of the house being built decades ago. Christina shared a few childhood pictures of her own rare ones where she looked serious and distant. "We don't have many family photos," she admitted, a bit embarrassed. "My parents divorced when I was 7. And after that, we were hardly ever together for pictures." Then I understood why she'd been so guarded, so defensive, why she'd struggled to believe in family bonds. She had never known what a stable home felt like. Well, change that from now on," I said, holding her hand. "Lucia will have so many family photos, we won't have enough walls to hang them." Christina laughed through tears. "Thank you, Rebecca, for not giving up on me, even when I was unbearable. Family doesn't give up on each other, sweetheart. Even when things get a quote hard when the memory wall was complete, it was breathtaking. A lifetime arranged in one collage: joy, loss, growth, and healing. At the center was a recent photo of the four of us, me, Daniel, Christina, and Lucia, sitting in the garden on Lucia's birthday. Perfect, Daniel said, admiring it. That's exactly what we wanted this house to be. A place that honors the past while building the future. The new house quickly became the heart of our family. I still lived in my own home, independent as ever, but I was there almost every day, helping with Lucia, tending the garden, or sharing dinner. My room was always ready with fresh sheets and a vase of flowers on the nightstand. Sometimes I stayed overnight, especially on rainy nights or when conversations ran late. One evening, after a particularly lovely dinner, I sat on the porch under a sky full of stars. Daniel had just put Lucia to bed, and Christina brought out 2 cups of tea. "Are you happy with how it turned out?" I asked, gesturing toward the softly lit house. "More than I ever imagined," she said, handing me a cup. "But the best part isn't the house itself, it's what it represents." "What does it represent?" I asked. Christina gazed at the sky, her voice quiet. "A new beginning, a chance to rebuild, to create something I never had before." We sat in silence for a while, listening to the crickets. Then she said softly, "Rebecca, do you remember the day you changed the locks?" "How could I forget? It was one of the hardest days of my life." "For me too," Christina said with a sad smile. "I was furious back then. I thought you were cruel, but now I understand it was the greatest act of love anyone's ever done for me." I was taken aback. "Love?" "Yes," she nodded. "You were the first person who ever set boundaries with me. The first who didn't cave when I tried to control everything. You taught me that respect has to be earned, not demanded. You were the first person who loved me enough to say no when I was wrong." Her words left me speechless. I had never thought that what I did could hold such meaning, but she was right. Sometimes love means setting boundaries even when it hurts, even when you're terrified of losing someone. Christina went on. "That night after we couldn't get inside the house, Daniel and I had a terrible fight. He blamed me for making him lose his mother, and I blamed him for not defending me. We said awful things to each other. "I'm sorry you both went through that," I whispered. "Don't be. It was necessary." That night was our rock bottom. In that shabby hotel room, I watched Daniel sleep after crying all night and asked myself, what am I doing with my life? Why am I pushing away the one person who's always been there for me? And from that moment, I started to change. Not quickly, not easily, but little by little, I had to face my fears, my anger, and my past. But every time I saw Daniel happy because we had made peace with you, I knew it was worth it. For the first time, I truly felt like I belonged to a real family. Daniel stepped onto the porch and sat beside us. "Lucy is asleep," he said, smiling. "What are you two talking about? The night you changed the locks?" Christina answered with a small laugh. Daniel grimaced. "The night we almost lost everything." "That wasn't the night we almost lost everything," Christina said gently. "It was the night we started rebuilding what we have today." Daniel took my hand. "Mom, I never thanked you properly for doing that. Back then, it felt like my whole world collapsed. But you were right. We needed that wake-up call." "It was a huge gamble," I admitted. "I was afraid I'd lose you forever." "You never could," Daniel said firmly. "We're family, and no matter how far we drift, family always finds its way home." Sitting there between the two of them, feeling their genuine love and respect, I felt grateful that I'd once been brave enough to protect my own dignity. If I had stayed silent and accepted humiliation just to keep a false sense of peace, we would never have built the bond we have today. Our family life gradually found its rhythm again. Lucia, months old, loved playing in the garden that Christina and I tended together. She mimicked the grown-ups picking up leaves, wiping tables, and made everyone laugh. One afternoon, while I was tidying up at Daniel's house, I noticed an envelope on the table. Inside was an invitation to Christina's graduation ceremony. She had finished her master's degree in business administration while working full-time and caring for her family. Christina walked in and saw me holding the envelope. She smiled. "I was going to surprise you." "I'm so proud of you," I said sincerely. "Doing all that under your circumstances is remarkable." "I couldn't have done it without you," she said firmly. "You helped with Lucia. You inspired me. You're my role model." "You know that." "Me?" I asked, stunned. "Yes," she said. "A woman who's endured so much yet kept her dignity and strength. Someone who knows when to say no, even when it hurts. I'd never thought of myself as anyone's role model. I just did what I had to do to survive, to raise my children, to hold on to self-respect. But through Christina's eyes, I saw that I was stronger than I had ever believed." Lucia's third birthday was a special occasion, not just celebrating her growth, but also marking 3 years since the night of the lock change, the turning point for all of us. The garden at their new home bloomed beautifully. The rose bushes I'd brought from my old house filled the air with fragrance, surrounded by lavender and rosemary. The fruit trees we had planted when they first moved in now bore their first tiny fruits, just like our relationship. Small, but full of promise. Christina, now a senior manager, organized the party with warmth and care. Daniel moved around taking photos, proud of his family. Meanwhile, Michael, my older son, pulled me aside. "Mom, I've got to admit," he said with a grin. "The day you changed the locks, I thought you'd lost your mind. I was sure Daniel would never forgive you and that Christina would never change." I laughed. I was afraid of that too. "But look around," he said, pointing toward the yard. Christina helping Lucia blow out candles. Daniel smiling as he took photos. Everyone chatting happily. I've never seen my brother this happy. And Christina, she's a completely different person. "People can change," I said, "when they're in the right environment, one built on clear boundaries and genuine love." "You've always been the wisest person in the family," Michael said. I smiled. Wisdom is a gift that comes with age and with lessons, both sweet and bitter. When the party ended, I saw Christina sitting alone on the garden bench watching Lucia run around. I sat beside her, my back aching after the long day. "Tired?" she asked. "A little." I chuckled. "I'm not 20 anymore." Christina laughed. "None of us are, but you look younger every year." "The secret is happiness," I joked. "The best anti-aging cream in the world." We sat in silence, watching Lucia twirl in her little dress. Then Christina spoke softly. "Rebecca, there's something I've wanted to say for a long time but didn't know how." "Go ahead, sweetheart. I grew up without any strong female role models. My mother was too busy surviving after the divorce. My aunts were distant, and I never had a grandmother around. When I met Daniel and heard him talk about his amazing mother, I felt jealous. That jealousy turned into resentment. I listened, my heart tightening. When I moved into your house, I wanted to prove I was more important to Daniel than you were. It was a ridiculous competition in my head. The kinder you were, the angrier I got because it made it impossible to hate you. I never knew that," I said softly. "I just thought you didn't like me." "No, it was fear," Christina admitted. "Fear of not being good enough. Fear of not knowing how to belong to a real family." She turned to me. "When you changed the locks, I realized something. Someone cared enough about me to draw a line. Before that, people either let me do whatever I wanted or walked away. You showed me what respect means, what self-love means, what family means." Her voice trembled. "You became the mother I never had. And I want you to know that in my heart, you are my mother just as much as Daniel's." Tears spilled down my face before I could stop them. After all these years, even though we had grown close, Christina had always called. Me, Rebecca, keeping a tiny distance. "Can I call you Mom?" she asked quietly. "Nothing would make me happier," I said, pulling her into my arms. Two women who once stood on opposite sides now held each other like true mother and daughter. Lucia ran over, her face glowing in the sunset. "Grandma, Mommy, look." She held up a tiny succulent sprouting in a pot. "Can I plant it in my own little pot?" "Of course, sweetheart," Christina said, lifting her up. "Grandma will teach me, right?" "Absolutely," I said, stroking her cheek. "In our family, that's how everything begins. We plant, we care, and we watch things grow." Daniel came out of the house carrying a few plates. Seeing the three of us together, he smiled. "Here are my 3 favorite girls. What are you planning now?" "We're making plans," Christina said with a teasing glance at me, "for the garden and for our family's future." Daniel set the plates down and sat beside us. Lucia crawled into his lap, proudly showing him her little plant. "Mom," Daniel said, brushing his daughter's hair, "I remember you once said that a garden is like a family. It needs strong roots, daily care, patience through the dry seasons, and wisdom to know when to prune and when to let it grow." I laughed. "That sounds exactly like me." "And you were right," Daniel said. The golden sunset bathed the garden in warm light, revealing the traces of time on all our faces. On mine, the lines of labor, loss, and hard-won peace. On Daniel's, the calm maturity of a man who'd learned to balance love and respect. On Christina's, the quiet beauty of deep transformation. And on Lucia's, pure innocence and a wide-open future. Who would have imagined that the lonely night I changed those locks would become the beginning of everything beautiful that followed? Who could have guessed that the moment I thought I'd lost my son forever was actually when I gained not only him, but a daughter and my daughter-in-law, and a grandchild who brought light into the twilight of my life? Life rarely goes the way we plan. It's the unexpected turns, the desperate choices we make in our darkest hours that lead us to the most beautiful places. My journey with Daniel and Christina taught me that real love isn't just about comfort or sacrifice. It's about having the courage to draw boundaries, to say no when it's necessary, and to protect what truly matters. Above all, I've learned that it's never too late to heal, to begin again, to bloom. Like the flowers in my garden that survived storms and scorching summers, my family has weathered its own seasons and grown stronger and more radiant than ever. Looking back, I understand that sometimes love isn't just about giving. It's about knowing when to stop, when to say enough, so that everyone can learn respect. Families aren't perfect, but if we're brave enough to set boundaries with love, that can be the first step toward healing. I once feared losing my son, but in truth, what I lost that day was only my silence and submission. In return, I gained a real family, one where love exists not out of obligation, but out of understanding. And what about you? Have you ever had to set boundaries with the people you love to find peace again? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you felt while listening to this story. And if you believe that every family can find its way back together through love and forgiveness, stay with me. Let's keep listening, learning, and healing one story at a time.